My next question was about the PSYOPs that have been conducted in our country and used against the American population with regard to division. What do you think about the permission structure for hate and discrimination that has been established by this regime? How does Congress, in particular, work to help mend that divide and get back on the same page with regard to what is acceptable in society?
Well, I think so much of that conversation comes back to, again, getting greater transparency and money out of the way that we communicate, right? So social media has become such a cesspool of allowing people to hide behind screens and share the sorts of hateful comments and theories that often are things that have been promoted by bots, right? When Twitter opened up, right, like half the MAGA movement was Russian troll bots. And so we've got to be able to have that level of transparency when we're seeing information that we know where it's actually coming from, and the fact that a lot of this is being amplified by bots and by paid media and the way that the algorithms are structured in the first place to promote that sort of thing. And so social media has been allowed, social media companies and tech companies have been allowed to write these rules for so long and hide behind this idea of, well, the First Amendment says you can't do anything about it. Well, of course it does. That's why we can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? There are rules when it comes to how speech harms others that we've got to be able to look at that, refine what that means in a social media environment, and return those community norms back to what they are. And I think that legislation goes back to greater protections. So when you look at enforcing of community standards, greater transparency around who is posting and why they are posting, and making sure that we're focused on the interests of us as individuals rather than corporate profits, that really they're profiting off the rage more than anything else.
So do you think this falls back to, or harkens back to Citizens United, where, when we redefine what a corporation is, how it's able to use their freedom of speech as the same as a person, this kind of thing, because this is a difficult balance, right, between what is harmful, which can be a subjective, opinion, versus, the freedom of speech argument, which is, I can say what I want to say.
But you also can't say what you're going to say without also having to accept the consequences of that speech too. And I think that that's the balance that we often forget about. Of, you have all these people say, well, I can do whatever I want to do. Well, it's not true. When you harm someone else, we do have rules around what it means when speech harms someone else. And I go back into, I think this is especially prevalent if we want to harken back to the AI part of this conversation around how do we manipulate images? How do deepfakes play into this? Of being able to potentially assault someone's character, not by saying something, but by manipulating their own words and making them say something that they didn't say in the first place. So there's so many different components to how do you rein in the social media space where it's been allowed to really take off. And then in our schools, making sure that we're talking about things honestly, of what are those societal norms, what are the ways that we're supposed to be, what does civil conversation look like, and the fact that no, you can't just say whatever you want because there's consequences to your speech as well.
Yeah, no, I'm welcome the day when we bring the consequences back.